Welcome back to the next episode. This is part 10 of Reading with Shalom, man. Part 10 of The Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James. The next sea of pages, or this sea of pages that's been laid before us, man. We're going to try to maneuver and move our way through the pages, man, and see what treasures await us, man. What can we find? What can we see? What lies can we expose? What truths can we unearth? We're going to dig deep like Jacques Cousteau. What it is, what it ain't, what we can and what we can't. And that's what we're going to try to find out, baby. Part 10, episode 10. I don't know what episode, but let's just say part 10 of this book. We're jumping into chapter 5 tonight. Chapter 5 tonight. It's an early one. I've been away. I've been, I don't want to say lollygagging, but it's been the destruction of Nicanor. It's been Purim, the feast of Purim going on. So, hey, had other things going on. But we back at it today. So welcome. Come on in. I'm Shalom. What's up? I'm out here. What's the business? Ready to read some shit. I hope you're ready to listen. Hope you're ready to seek and find for yourself. What's up? Man. We at it. When you come on in, like, comment, subscribe. Damn, my shit dirty. Like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your people. Shalom out here reading shit. Doing shit. I've been carving shit. I've been making some headway on my carving. That's another reason why I've been reading too. Look at that, boy. I done did some things. I gotta go back and put the eyes and the facial expressions in there. But I'm almost there. I'm getting somewhere. Man. That's what we got to do. We got to push because we have all that we need to succeed. You have all that you need to succeed. And we just got to succeed. And that's the objective, to succeed at whatever it is. Succeed small and work your way up, and succeed big and take over everything, man. Burn down the plantations and mental barricades in your mind and rebuild up anew. Whether it be new habits, new whatever, man. We got to do it. We got things to do. It's on you. It's on you. It's on me. It's on you. It's on us. We can do it, baby. So what's up out there in YouTube land? I hope you got a plan. Because tonight is some reading at hand. And we're going to keep going. We're going to traverse the sea of pages by Mr. C.L.R. James tonight. That's what we're going to do. We're going to see how far can we go. How far can we traverse? The objective is to make it to the end of the book, and we're almost halfway through. We're almost to the halfway point. And we're learning about the Mr. Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution. Welcome, Reggie. What's up? Welcome. We're going to see and read some more about the revolution. And hopefully we can make a revolution in our own minds, because that's where the revolution starts. The revolution starts in your mind, with you. Each of us have to make a revolution. Ain't no problem here, baby. Ain't no problem here, Faco. Ain't no problem here. Man, we got good stuff going on over here. Good stuff. Growth going on over here. That's what we got. Revolutions going on over here. Yes, that's what we taught. Toussaint Louverture is the Haitian brother. He is the Haitian brother that defended and fought for Haiti, as well as Biassou and Jean-Francois. But that's the book. We are going to keep reading about it. I'm Shalom. That's who I am. What's up? So, but before, if you're new to the channel, what's up, baby? Well, welcome. We're reading about your people. We're reading about your ancestors then. So before, if you're new to the channel, welcome everybody. Welcome all those old and new. Welcome, man. Our objective is to grow. Our objective is to be better. Our objective is to learn something. Our objective is to dive deep into these books. You know, appreciate it, Reggie. Appreciate the subscription. We're going to continue to dive deep in the books and see what we can learn, the shit that we ain't taught, the stuff that we are not taught in schools, the things that you may not only hear through passing. We're going to see some of the things, whatever book it is. is to unearth it. What can we learn and grow from? What treasures does each of the books that I read or you may read have for us? How can we learn and grow from it? But we're trying to build better habits, build better uses. So to continue on, if this is your first time when it comes to reading the books, whenever I'm reading whatever book I read, when it comes to something I don't understand or a word I don't know, I will stop and look at it. So be prepared for that. I will look up the word, whether it's the dictionary or whether it's using the Terminator. Along with reading, we're also trying to build a better habit as far as, getting into shape, doing a little something. So the objective is, or the plan of action is, to work your body, work your mind, and work your body again. Work your body when we come on in and work your body when you go on out. So as a captain of the ship, I asked everybody 25 things. Give me 25 things. It don't matter what it is. Just make sure that it's something that you can do. Do 25 things that you can do. You know what you can do. If you're fat, get off your fat ass and do something. If you're lazy, get off your lazy ass and do something. Because we got to do something, man. We got to be better. We got to be better. So 25 things, whatever it is, man. I'm going to do 25 push-ups. You can do 25 push-ups, jumping jacks, whatever it is. Just don't cheat yourself. Just don't cheat yourself, man. Let's get it. 25 things so we can start reading. Let's go ahead and do some push-ups. That's what I'm doing. 25 of them suckers. Let's get it. How you want it, you do it. Let's get it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I hope you did 25 something. I'm going to keep going. Since I'm the captain of the ship, I'm going to give you a little bit more. 25 more. That's what I'm going to do. 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. Almost lost count. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Shoot it off like a rocket. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We done. Let's go. 25 things. Now it's time to read. Let's read. Time to read. Time to work our mind now. We worked our body. Now it's time to work our mind. Man, I'm outside every day. I ain't worried about nobody. I'm outside every day. I was outside today. What up? I ain't some shit. I got something for them people. A book. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right. Oh, well. Haters gonna hate. But I appreciate all the comments in the chat. Thank you. All is good. All right. The Black Jacobins. The Black Jacobins, the Toussaint Louverture, and the San Domingo Revolution by C.L.R. James. This is the sea of pages that he has led before us today. And we're going to traverse it. We're going to try to find what we can find. What treasures awaits us? What can we learn and grow from? And we're in chapter 5. This is part 10. Chapter 5, and the Paris Mass is complete. Yeah. Let's see how long this is. We're going to read for about an hour tonight. We're going to go for an hour. We're not going to finish chapter 5 today. It's probably going to be, 2 or 3. Maybe 2 sessions. 2 sessions for chapter 5. But let's read. Be prepared. Let me get my pens and papers and highlighters ready. All right. Let's go. And the Paris Mass is complete. Chapter 5. 6,000 men, 4,000 National Guards, and 2,000 troops of the line sailed from France in 15 ships to finish with all of the quarreling between the slave owners in San Domingo and to suppress the Black Revolt. The commissioners were Santanax, a right-wing Jacobin, friend of Brisset, Poverel, who had moved the expulsions of Barnave and his friends from the Jacobins, and was also a follower of Brisset, and one Al-Hard, a non-entity. And for the task at hand, the expedition was adequate, but it could not escape the division which was tearing off France after July of 1789. The commissioners were revolutionaries. The commanding officers were officers of the king. And before the boat left, Desperads and the commander quarreled with the commissioner, about the precedents and addressed the troops of the equivocal and unconstitutional words. They quarreled so loudly that it was heard by the officers and the men, and they quarreled again over the method of landing, and they split as soon as they landed. The National Guard were civilians of the revolution, and the troops were soldiers of the king. And as soon as Desperads landed, instead of mobilizing all his forces for an attack against the slaves, he conspired with the local royalists, and the National Guards were distributing among the various camps under royalist officers. The commissioners carried the revolution on board with them, and they went to meet it. But what was of infinitely more importance for the slaves, they had left it behind them. They had sailed from Rochefort in the middle of July, and before they reached San Domingo, the Paris masses, tired of the equivocations, tired of the equivocations and the incompetence of the parliaments, had taken matters into their own hands and dragged the Bourbons off to their throne. To escape from the demand of the peasants, the wish of the work that a maximum price be fixed for foodstuffs, and the other burning questions of the revolutions, the Girondins, 17 days after the decree of April 4th, plunged the country into a war with Austria. The army was half royalist, half revolutionary, and Marie Antoinette was sending the war plans to the enemy. Now, revolutionary France seemed unable to organize itself, and the royalists in France were awaiting the entry of the foreigners to rise and massacre the revolution. The Girondins, afraid of the counter-revolution, but more afraid of the Paris masses, would not take steps against the royalists and the people of Paris. Goaded to the exasperation, stormed the there's a lot of words I ain't getting tonight. The Tuileries on August the 10th. I'm reading terrible tonight. Bear with me. They imprisoned the royal family, and the legislative was dissolved, and a new parliament, the National Convention, was summoned. The masses administered a rough justice to the royalist plotters in the September massacres, and took the defense of France into their own dirty but strong and honest hands. The Girondin government proposed to leave Paris, and the workers forbade it. They armed 2,000 volunteers a day, and with the royalists in their rear, quiet for a long time to come, went singing happily to drive the counter-revolution from the soil of France. If revolutionary France was saved, it was due to them. And what has all this to do with the slaves? Everything. The workers and peasants of France could not have been expected to take any interest in the colonial question that in normal times, any more than one can expect similar interest from British or French workers today. But now they were rused. They were striking at royalty, tyranny, reaction, and oppression of all types. And with these, they included slavery. The prejudice of race is superficially the most irrational of all prejudices, and by a perfectly comprehensible reaction, the Paris workers, from indifference in 1789, had come by the time to detest no section of the aristocracy so much as those whom they call the aristocrats of the skin. On August 11th, the day after the Tuileries fell, Page, a notorious agent of the colonists in France, wrote home almost in despair. One spirit alone reigns here. It is horror of slavery and enthusiasm for liberty. It is a frenzy which wins all heads and grows every day. And henceforth, The Paris masses were for abolition, and their black brothers in San Domingo, for the first time, had passionate allies in France. The National Convention would be elected and would deliberate under the influence of these masses. And the slaves in San Domingo, by their insurrection, had shown revolutionary France that they could fight and die for freedom. And the logical development of the revolution in France had brought to the front of the stage masses who, when they had said abolition, meant in it theory and in practice. But it takes organization and time to translate mass feelings into action. And for the moment, the revolution had more urgent matters than slavery to deal with. Neither the new commissioners nor the people of San Domingo knew anything about August the 10th, when the commissioners landed on September the 18th. They had come mainly to deal with the mulatto question, and to their pleased surprise, they found they settled. And 3 years of civil war, 1 year of the slave revolution, had taught these white planters some sense at last. And as soon as the news of the decree arrived, all the whites, north, west, and south, accepted it. And on July 14th of 1792, the whites gave the men of color a diner. A few days later, the men of color returned it. The governor, the commander of the naval station, and the treasurer all wrote to the commissioners to say that all the whites had agreed to accept the decree. Naturally, there was still race prejudice. Let me see if I read this bottom. 8. Oh, no, that's just about it. Let me keep going. That cannot be destroyed in a day or in a year, but whites wanted peace. And at the ceremonial reception, the white president of the assembly, the white mayor of Le Cap, all treated the quarrel with the mulattoes as a thing of the past. And 2 things troubled them. One was slavery, and we have not brought 500,000 slaves from the coast of Africa to make them into French citizens, said the president of the assembly to Santonax. And Santonax reassured him. I recognize, he said, only 2 classes of men in San Domingo, the free without distinction of color and the slaves. But the second question was the revolution, and white cockades and red each hoped for help from the commissioners. Yes, sir.
I'm done reading?
No, sir. I just started. The royalists saw in the commissioners official appointed by the king that the revolutionaries saw,
That wasn't easy.
All right. The revolutionaries saw in them members of the Jacobin Club, and Santonax, as was inevitable in the Jacobin and the Bristons, sided with the revolution. He recognized that the government to concentrate power in the hands of the commission and included in his council both mulattoes and the free blacks. And the next step was now obviously the attack on the slaves. But before the troops began to feel the effects of the climate, but the vigorous attack was never made. And early in October, San Domingo heard the news of August the 10th. And this was no more mere matter of loyalty to the monarch. The bourgeoisie throws over its king for a republic quickly enough if thereby it can save its skin and its goods. And August 10th was more than that. It was the bid of the masses for power, not with speeches, but with arms. And there could be no truce anywhere on French territory after August the 10th. And royalists under Despardes and revolutionaries under Santonax sprang to each other's throats. And the mulattoes fought for Santonax, who was victorious and departed Despardes and the other royalist leaders to France. Now the revolution was triumphant, but Santonax was determined to abolish mulatto discrimination. And the small whites and the rabble, although revolutionary, were furious at seeing the rich people of color high in favor with Santonax. They raged with jealousy and race prejudice. And Santonax called them aristocrats of the skin, and stood by the spirit of the letter of the April 4th decree. And once more, the division between the rulers had given a further breathing space to be ruled. Yet, this apparent good fortune was fundamentally no accident. And the first sign of a thoroughly ill-adjusted or bankrupt form of society is that the ruling classes cannot agree how to save the situation. It is this division which opens the breach, and the ruling classes will continue to fight with each other, just so long as they do not fear the mass seizure of power. The insurrection, nevertheless, now seemed at its last gasps, and Laveau, the French commander, even with his few soldiers, defeated Toussaint and drove the revolting slaves from their positions. Famine and disease were decimating their forces. Then it was that 15,000 men, women, and children, starving with their soldiers defeated and driven into the mountains, came begging to be taken back. And Toussaint and his trained band of a few hundred, little more than a year old, were helpless in the crowd. And Jean-Francois and Biassou, though superior in numbers, were weaker than he. Candy, who led the band of mulattoes, had deserted the blacks and joined the commissioners, and beginning that the mulattoes vacillation. Let's see what that word means. Vacillation. What is vacillation? Vacillation. Beginning that mulattoes vacillation, which was to have such disastrous consequences in the future. Vacillation. Let's check the Terminator. Vacillation. Vacillation. Not vaccination, it's vacillation. V-A-C-I-L-L.
Vacillation.
Vacillation. The inability to decide between different opinions and actions. Indecision. Candy, who led the band of mulattoes, had deserted the blacks and joined the commissioners. Beginning that mulatto indecisiveness, or that mulatto indecision, or that mulatto inability to decide between different opinions or actions, that mulatto vacillation, which was to have such disastrous consequences in the future. Now, early in 1793, Laveau was preparing a final assault to complete the route of the insurrection, and when he was recalled by the commissioners. The revolution had overflowed the boundaries of France, and on January the 21st, 1793, the king was executed, and the revolutionary armies were now winning successes and ruling classes of Europe armed against this new monster, democracy. In February came war with Spain, then with Britain, and it was to defend the coast against the foreign enemy that Santenax recalled Laveau. Now, the revolutionary tide flowed down into the plain once more, and never again to lose heart, and Toussaint begins to emerge as the man of the future. For the moment, the blacks did not know where their true interests lay, and if they did not, it was not their fault, because the French Revolution, being still in the hands of the liberals and moderates, was clearly bent on driving the blacks back to the old slavery. Thus, when the Spaniards in San Domingo offered the blacks an alliance against the French government, naturally they accepted. And here were white men offering them guns and ammunition and supplies, recognizing them as soldiers and treating them as equals and asking them to shoot other whites. And all trooped over to join the Spanish forces, and Jean-Francois and Biassou were appointed lieutenant generals of the armies of the kings of Spain. Now Toussaint went also, but he made his terms with the Spaniards as an independent leader and not as a subordinate of Biassou. He had 600 men, well trained and absolutely devoted to him, and he received the official title of colonel. Like all the other blacks, Toussaint attacked the godless, kingless republic and fought in the name of royalty, both Spanish and French. But for him, Already, these slogans were merely politics and not convictions. It is his maturity that is so astonishing. And Jean-Francois and Biassou were perfectly satisfied with their new official positions. But Toussaint proposed to the Marquis de Hamano, the Marquess de Hamano, his immediate chief, a plan for conquering the French colony by granting freedom to all the blacks. Now, de Hamano agreed, but Don Garcia, there we go. But Don Garcia, the governor, refused. Foiled here, before June, he wrote to Laveau. He had not yet been with the Spaniards 4 months, and offering to join the French and fight against the Spaniards if Laveau will recognize the liberty of the blacks and grant a plenary amnesty. Plenary amnesty. Plenary. Plenary. Let's write it down. Plenary. 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 And what was the last word? Vacillation. VACILLATION. Plenary. Let's see what plenary is. Plenary. Plenary means complete, full, or absolute, and can be used as an adjective or a noun. Example, you might describe a session of a conference as plenary if all members are present. Offering to join the French and fight against the Spaniards if Laveau would recognize the liberty of the blacks and grant a plenary amnesty, or amnesty for everybody. Complete amnesty. Offer grant a complete amnesty, or grant a full amnesty, an absolute amnesty, a plenary amnesty. Now, Laveau refused, and Toussaint, baffled, remained with the Spaniards. But things went from bad to worse with the French, and on August the 6th, Chanlat, a mulatto officer, one of Santanax's creations, offered Toussaint the protection of the Republic if he would bring his forces over. And in politics, all abstract terms conceal treachery. Toussaint refused and blandly replied that the blacks wished the king and that they would lay down their arms only when he had been recognized. Doubtless, Chanlet thought he had to be an ignorant and fanatical African for many historians, even after studying Toussaint's career, have still continued to believe that he had some African faith in kingship. Nothing was further from Toussaint's mind. Though allied to the Spaniards, he continued boldly to rally all the blacks on the slogan of liberty for all. And on August 29th, he issued a call. Brothers and friends, I am Toussaint Louverture, and my name is perhaps known to you. I have undertaken vengeance, and I want liberty and equality to reign in San Domingo. I work to bring them into existence. Unite yourselves to us, brothers, and fight with us for the same cause, etc. Your very humble and very obedient servant, signed Toussaint Louverture, General of the armies of the King for the public good. Now, this curious document shows that already Toussaint had changed his last name from Breda to Louverture, and already had reason to expect that his name was known. But what was most noteworthy is the confidence with which he is riding 2 horses at once. He uses the prestige of his position as general of the armies of the king, but he calls on the Negroes in the same name of liberty and equality, and the watchwords of the French Revolution, of which royalty was the sworn enemy, and neither would help his aims, so he was using both. Now, Santanax continued to rule with sternness in the north, and the whites sullenly accepting the victory of the revolution, the mulattoes grabbing greedily at all government posts. And Santonax, though later he would be disgusted with this greediness, leaned on them and deported for the trial in France all who smelt a counter-revolution. Just at this time, they arrived from France. Gallbald, appointed governor in place of de la Blancheland, and arrested and sent to France by Santonax. Now, when Gallbald reached Le Cap, Santonax was at Port-au-Prince and visiting Polverol, and the whites of Le Cap, nearly all for the counter-revolution, gave Gallbald, who had property in San Domingo, a tumultuous welcome. And Santonax and Polverel knew what this meant, and hurrying from Port-au-Prince dismissed Gallbald and his staff and put them on a vessel to be taken to France. But Gallbald was not going so easily. The sailors in the fleet took his part. He landed with the force, and the whites of the counter-revolution joined him, and together they drove the commissioners and their forces out of the city. Now Santonax, facing defeat and extermination, gave orders to the slaves and the prisoners of Le Cap should be armed, and at the same time promising pardon and freedom to the insurgent slaves who surrounded the city. He unloosed a lot of Gallbald and the whites, and Gallbald's sailors, drunk with victory and with wine, had just turned from fighting to pillage when 10,000 blacks swooped down from the hills onto the city. Ooh, get their asses. Ooh, swoop down like a damn eagle. I wonder if any of them were the Maroons. Had just turned from fighting to pillage when 10,000 blacks had swooped down from the hills onto the city. The road from the heights ran along the seashore, and the sailors who remained on the ships in the harbor could see them hour after hour swarming down to Le Cap. The counter-revolution fled for the harbor, leaving all behind them, and Gallbald had to throw himself into the sea to get to a boat. And to complete the royalist discomfiture, fire broke out and burnt 2/3 of the city to the ground, destroying hundreds of millions worth of property. And 10,000 refugees crowded onto the vessels in the harbor and set out for the United States of America, the great majority of them never to return. And it was the end of the white domination in San Domingo. Oh, handle your business, baby. Get them out of there. That is how white San Domingo destroyed itself. The current legend that the abolition of slavery resulted in the destruction of the whites is a shameless lie, typical of the means by which reaction covers its crimes in the past and seeks to block advance in the present. In May of 1792, the whites were all tumbling over each other to give rights to the mulattoes. And Room says that when the decree on April 4th arrived, they published it the day after. It was too late. And if they had done it a year before, at the outbreak of the slave revolution, they would have been able to master it before it spread. And why didn't they? Race prejudice. Nonsense. Why did not Charles I and his followers behave reasonably with Cromwell? As late as 1646, 2 years after Marston Moor, Mrs. Cromwell and Mrs. Ireton had tea with Charles at Hampton Court. Cromwell, great revolutionary but great bourgeois, was willing to come to terms. And why did not Louis and Marie Antoinette at the court behave reasonably to the moderate revolutionaries before August the 10th? Why indeed? The monarchy in France had to be torn up by the roots. Those in power never gave way and admit defeat only to plot and scheme to regain their lost power and privilege. Had the monarchists been white and the bourgeoisie brown and the masses of France black, and the French Revolution would have gone down in history as a race war. But although they were all white, in France, they fought just the same. And the struggle of classes ends either in the reconstruction of society or in the common ruin of the contending classes. The French Revolution laid the basis in modern France, and the country as a whole being strong enough to stand the shock and profit by it, but so corrupt and rotten was the slave society of San Domingo that it could not stand any stain and perished, and as it deserved to perish. Santanax returned to Le Cap, a town half ruined to his surprise, and the pillage over. The revolted slaves did not stay with the commissioners. Gathering up their plunder, they went back to their roving life in the hills and to their Spanish allies. And the French sent envoys to win them over. But all of them, Toussaint included, replied that they could only obey a king, and they would only recognize the commissioners when they had a king. Which piece of sophistry had been carefully taught them by the Spaniards. And the royalist officers were deserting Santanax for the Spaniards. And now, to complete the difficulties of the commissioners, the slaves who had not yet revolted, kindled by the revolutionary ferment around them, refused to be slaves any longer. They crowded the streets of Le Cap, exalted as at a revivalist meeting, and called for liberty and equality. On plantations which had hitherto escaped destruction, it was the same. And the white slave owners who remained in San Domingo had learned much in the last 2 years. And one of them, who owned hundreds of slaves, told Santanax that it would be best to declare abolition. Santanax learnt that Jean-Francois was about to rally the blacks to his standard by calling them all to liberty. Hemmed in all on all sides and looking for support against the enemy at home and enemy abroad, Santanax declared the abolition of slavery on August the 29th, 1793. It was his last card. He could not help himself. And in the West Province, Poverel, although dissatisfied, accepted the decree and pursued the whites who remained not to oppose it. And for the time being, having no other alternative, they accepted. But the decree was a failure. Those freed by Santanax remained always faithful to him. But Jean-Francois, Biassou, and the other experienced soldiers remained in alliance with the Spaniards. And Toussaint, though not faithful to the Spaniards, still refused to go over to the French. In the South, the slaves had revolted against both whites and mulattoes and were winning great victories. But in the West, the mulattoes were still dominant, and Regard and Beauvais, with their white allies, had long since captured Port-au-Prince. And chasing the royalists away, the mulatto army established a mulatto domination. But when the fighting was over, they chose some of the bravest slaves and offered them freedom if they would lead the rest back to slavery and keep them in order. The offer was accepted, and 100,000, what a number, and 100,000 slaves were led back to their plantations. The inevitable fate of any class which allows itself to be led by another. Sure of their slaves, many of the mulatto proprietors, in the West, though having the government in their hands, were furious at the decree of abolition and abandoned the revolution to which they owed so much. Property, white and mulatto, had come together again under the flag of the counter-revolution. Now, Santanax tried desperately to win over the black slaves, but despite all the overtures by Laveau, urging the decree of abolition as evidence of goodwill towards the blacks, Toussaint would not join the French. His band was growing fast now, and not only in number, but in quality. And many of the deserting royalist officers, instead of joining the Spanish forces, preferred to join the troops of blacks who had formerly been French, hoping to gain influence over them and use them for their own purposes. They joined Toussaint's band. From them, he learnt the orthodox military art, used them to train his troops, and organize an efficient staff. There were no maps of the district, and he called together the local inhabitants, learnt from them the geography of their neighborhood, and from his early dabblings in geometry was able to construct useful maps. One of his guides was Dessalines, and unable to read or write, his body scarred with strokes from the whip, but a born soldier, soon to hold high command. Toussaint's forces grew, and as much by his fearless fighting as by his mastery of politics and intrigue. Lieutenant Colonel Nully, having deserted to Toussaint, the French appointed Brandecourt in his place. And with 300 picked men, Toussaint prepared an ambush for Brandecourt. And as Brandecourt's men approached, they were not fired upon, but challenged. Who goes there? France. Then let your general come and speak to ours. No harm shall befall him. Brandecourt, who was in the center, ordered an attack, but his men begged him to parley with Toussaint. And as soon as Brandecourt went forward, he was seized and brought before Toussaint, who commanded him to write an order to his forces to yield. And in tears, Brandecourt wrote to Picot, his second in command, that he was a prisoner and left it to him to do what he thought fit. Toussaint tore up the letter and insisted that Brandecourt should write a direct command to lay down arms. Brandecourt wrote, and on getting the letter, Picot, who was secretly in touch with Toussaint, said to the other officers, "Do what you like, I shall surrender." And the three documents joined Toussaint's forces. Excuse me, not documents, the three detachments. And the three detachments joined Toussaint's forces without a blow. Now, when Toussaint returned to camp leading these white troops, his own men were so startled that he had difficulty in assuring them that the newcomers were allies, and his chief, de Hermano, was equally astonished. The bloodless victory gave him Dundon, and he marched on Marmalade, and where a stern engagement lasted all day. Now Vernet, the mulatto commander, called a coward by Poverel, found himself in difficulties, and soon he deserted to Toussaint with 1,200 men. Toussaint took Ennery, and the other commander of that fort joined him, and they remained only Plaisance between him and Gonavives. But Plaisance, but he was driven back by the Mulatto Legion from the west, which recaptured Ennery. Man, they is doing some fighting, man. They is going back and forth. And there's a lot of people seem to be joining Toussaint. That three detachments, ooh, I bet that's a sight to see, man. It's like in Django, when Django rolled up on the who is that nigga on that nag? You know, that's probably how they was looking at Toussaint when he marching back with all these white folks. three detachments of white folks following behind this. Who is this nigga leading all these white folks? That's Toussaint. You don't know about Toussaint? Toussaint Louverture. That's Toussaint. That boy whipping boys without bloodshed. After a short respite to gather his forces, he retook Ennery. And in December of 1793, he marched into Gonavives, and going back, he took Plaisance and Chanlet. He took Plaisance and Chanlet, and commander joined him with all his troops, and all the garrisons of Saint Marc, Varetz, Arquet, in hopeless isolation, surrendered to Toussaint and joined his forces. Now, the abolition of slavery, the basis of property in San Domingo, had weakened the morale of the Republican commanders, and between joining the counter-revolution under Toussaint and being massacred by his forces, the choice was easy, especially as the black general already had a great reputation for humanity, a very singular thing in the San Domingo of those days. And thus, in the early months of 1794, Toussaint held the cordon of the West from the Spanish colony to the sea, and had isolated the North Province from the west to the south. The Spaniards held every fortified post in the North Province except Le Cap itself, and two others, and all knew it was Toussaint's doing. Toussaint was still subordinate to Jean-Francois and Biassou, but he knew he now had 4,000 men, and under him were blacks, mulattoes, and whites, former officers of the Ancien regime and former Republicans. But the majority were black, and Dessalines, Christophe, and Mosé had been slaves, and Toussaint was in undisputed command, and already a master of the art of war and a skillful negotiator. But although he had fought under the flag of the counter-revolution, he knew where his power lay. And under the very noses of the Spanish commanders, he continued to call the blacks for freedom. Now Jean-Francois and Biassou, his rivals, were now the idols of the refugee French colonists. And 2 years before, they would not even speak to them. But revolution is a great teacher, and these French planters, the new subjects of the King of Spain, as they called themselves, compared Jean-Francois and Biassou to the great generals of antiquity, and looked to them to clear the mountains, reestablish order, and then take Le Cap. Now Biassou and Jean-Francois and D'Hermano formed a plan of campaign, and Biassou began to group his forces, suppressing some of the camps Toussaint had instituted. Now Toussaint replaced the camps and raised the blacks, and to the wrath and disgust of the colonists, he persisted in violating the sacred promises of the Spanish king by promising general freedom to all the slaves who had gone back to their duty and were preserving order. The colonists praised Biassou, whose conduct merited general admiration, but they cursed Toussaint and his liberty for all, called him a traitor to the king, and demanded his head. And Toussaint exercised an extraordinary domination over all men with whom he worked, and the Marquess de Hermano, who admired him greatly, either could not or would not do anything. And while Toussaint performed these miracles in the north, the British added to the complications by making an armed bid for San Domingo, now apparently without defense. And from the beginning of the revolution, the planters had been throwing out threats that they would seek the overlordship of Britain. And after the slave revolt in 1791, they offered the colony to Pitt. But San Domingo was already Africa and India. San Domingo was hardly Africa and India, where one raided at will. Interference would mean war with France. Then the British therefore refused, but busied themselves with schemes and plans of conquest. In December 1792, Lieutenant Colonel Jean Chalmers, an expert of West Indian affairs, wrote a memorandum to Pitt on what he called the vast importance of San Domingo. The deplorable situation of the French West Indies, said Chalmers, seems loudly to crave the protection of Great Britain. And oddly enough, this protection promised to be most profitable. The advantages of San Domingo to Great Britain are innumerable and would give her the monopoly of sugar, indigo, cotton, and coffee. And this island for ages would give such aid and force to industry as would be most happily felt in every part of the empire. It would prevent all migration from all the three kingdoms to America, which, without such acquisition, will keep pace and augment with the prosperity of America so as to become truly alarming and detrimental. Chalmers shared advanced British opinion on the decline of the British West Indies, and the West Indian possessions of Great Britain are comparatively deficient, diminutive, and widely extended, and therefore little capable of defense. Here was the chance to redeem this sad state of affairs, and by an alliance with Spain, offensive and defensive, the two countries could keep France and America out of the West Indies and secure themselves there. Now, Britain should try to get the whole of San Domingo, but should circumstances or united powers decide the whole to be too ponderous for her political scale, she must at all events retain the north part of the island. Now, the patriotic colonel ended on a characteristic note. Gloomy and perilous as the present state of Europe is, yet from these evils, the greatest and most lasting benefits may arise from the brief, well-conducted war, terminated by the happy pacification. It is, therefore, humbly hope that the belligerents will see the strong necessity and confirming her France to limits as established at the death of Henry IV, adding thereunto all her foreign dominions, San Domingo and the Isle of Bourbon, excepting. Now, Colonel Chalmers's anxiety about the vast importance of San Domingo was quite unjustified. Those were Pitt's sentiments exactly. And the moment war seemed imminent, Dundas dispatched for 4 French colonists to Williamson, the governor of Jamaica, with the letter of introduction. And immediately after the declaration of war, negotiations were begun, and on September 3rd of 1793, capitulations were signed, and the colony would accept the protection of Great Britain until the peace. Now, modifications would be introduced in the exclusive, but the Asean regime would be reestablished, slavery and mulatto discrimination, and all Clarkson and Wilberforce were left to bewail and bemoan the peculiar lukewarmness Pitt now showed for the cause he had advocated so urgently a few years before. If ever there was a good thing, this looked like one, and petitions from all parts of the island assured the British that they were to be welcomed by the persons possessing property, and who else in San Domingo mattered. All expenses were to be repaid from the revenues of San Domingo. And General Collier told Dundas that he entertained no apprehensions, of our successes in the West Indies. Now, Pitt and Dundas pressed the expedition on with a reckless disregard even for the safety of Britain, and Dundas was very nearly out of temper at some delay. For Pitt, the West Indies was the first point to make certain, and what San Domingo meant in those days can be judged from the fact that though a French invasion threatened Britain, even that was not a delay the dispatch of the expedition. Even that was not to delay the dispatch of the expedition. Additional exertions will then be necessary to make the country take care of its own internal defense. And 2 years later, the same Dundas would tell Parliament that the war of the West Indies was on the part of this country, not a war for riches or local aggrandizement, but a war for security. And Dundas knew that not a single member of Parliament would believe him. But Parliament has always agreed to speak in these terms in order to keep the people quiet. Yeah, they didn't want to know about that damn slavery. They don't even want to hear the word slavery. We're going to read one more page. I'm going to get to a good stopping point. 1 or 2 more pages. On September 9th, the British expedition of 900 men left Jamaica and landed in Jeremy on the 19th. And property owners are the most energetic flag waggers and the patriots in every country, but only so long as they enjoy these possessions. To safeguard those that desert God, king, and country in a twinkling, all perpetrated are all propertied, there we go, all propertied San Domingo rushed to welcome the British and defenders of the slavery, soldiers like the brothers Regard and Bovas, and the detachments they commanded, politicians like Pinchinat, stayed with the French, but the mulatto proprietors, particularly those of the West Province, preferred their slaves to liberty and equality, and all the fighting round Port-au-Prince was forgotten. Now, when Bovas remonstrated with Savory, mulatto mayor of St. Mark, Savory did not distinguish his views, and so long as the proclamations of the civil commissioners assured a happy and prosperous future, I carried out all their instructions. But from the moment I saw that they were preparing the thunderbolt which is bursting on all sides, I took measures to safeguard our fellow citizens and preserve our property. Now Ogay's brother went with Savory, and with such a welcome, nothing could stop the British. By the beginning of 1794, they were in possession of the whole seaboard of the Gulf of Port-au-Prince and accepting the capital, the whole of the West Province, and most of the South, except for the small territory held by Regard's troops and the important fortress of Mole or of Mole St. Nicholas. And from the other West Indian islands came even more startling news of the triumph of Britain and the counter-revolution. And on February 3rd, the British force of 7,000 men and 19 vessels sailed from Barbados and in 2 months had captured Martinique, St. Lucia, and Guadeloupe. Now Williamson, governor of Jamaica, had information that in Le Cap itself, all the people of property, the phrase of his own, were waiting to receive them. And he wrote to Dunbus of the prodigious trade that they were now doing with San Domingo, and hoped that the trade would correspondingly improve British revenues. Dunbus congratulated him heartily on this surprisingly quick success. And it was a crucial moment in world history. If the British could hold San Domingo, the finest colony in the world, they would once more be a power in American waters. And instead of being abolitionists, they would be the most powerful practitioners and advocates of the slave trade, on a scale excelling anything they had ever been done before. But there was another, more urgent issue. If the British completed the conquest of San Domingo, the colonial empire of revolutionary France was gone. Its vast resources would be directed into British pockets, and Britain would be able to return to Europe and throw army and navy against the revolution. Now, Santonax, Poverel, and Laveau knew that this and fought to save San Domingo from the revolution. And if it was necessary to hide in a double and triple range of hills, said Santonax to his followers in Le Cap, I will show you the way. We shall have no other asylum than cannons, no other food than water and bananas, but we shall live and die free. The British tried to bribe Laveau, for revolutionaries were, of course, low fellows who act as they do for money or ambition. And Laveau, a nobleman under the old regime, called out Major James Grant, who, however, declined. Let us perish, citizens, wrote Santonax to one of his officers. Yes, let us perish 1,000 times rather than permit the people of San Domingo to fall into the enslavement and servitude. If we are defeated, we shall leave for the English only bones and ashes. And the British called on him to surrender Port-au-Prince. And with a handful of men, he disdainfully refused, and the British retired. But at the end of May, a united force of British soldiers and French immigrants attacked the town, and traders let them into the important fort out on the outskirts, and Santanax and Poverel, escorted by Bovas and a small detachment of blacks, fled to Jacmel. And it was June 4th, and the English celebrated the capture of the country on the birthday of the king. And the rest now was only a matter of days. Now Toussaint, a Spanish officer and therefore ally of the British, saw all his secret hopes being wrecked by the British victories. He was following the progress of abolition in England, but from the time there seemed a real possibility of getting San Domingo, the abolition bill began its long career as a hardy annual. Now, French Republic, British constitutional monarchy, Spanish autocracy, and though one might smile and another frown according to the exigencies of the moment, none troubled to disguise that in the last analysis, the Negro could expect either the overseer's whip or the bayonet. And once the British were masters of San Domingo, then Spaniards, and British would turn on the blacks and drive them back into slavery, Santanax had abolished slavery, but he had no authority to do so. And it was the Republican government of France alone which could decide this. And the Republican government spoke no word. I'm going to stop there. Yeah, we're going to stop there. We're going to stop there. Man, old Toussaint was taking people, man. Toussaint was kicking ass and taking names. He was doing his thing. The next chapter. What? I'm not gonna stop there. I'm gonna keep reading. I said I was gonna stop there, but I'm gonna keep reading because I'm 3 pages away from chapter 6. I didn't know I was so close. I didn't even know I was gonna make it that far. I'm gonna keep reading to chapter 6. Let's keep reading. We got 3 pages. We got 3 pages left. We'll keep reading. Now, despite the feelings from the slaves of France, the convention did nothing for over a year. And as long as Brisset and the Girondins remained in power, no word would be said about the slaves. But Brisset and history and his party could not last. They would not check the speculations of the bourgeoisie with the currency. They would not fix maximum prices for food, and they would not tax the rich to pay for the war. They would not pass the legislation necessary to abolish the feudal dues, and they would not ratify the seizures of the land by the peasants. Being afraid of Paris, they would not bring the whole country under a strong central government, and despite incident royalist insurrection and plotting, they stuck the federal system whereby the bourgeoisie in the provinces would be beyond the control of revolutionary Paris. It was, and not Robespierre and the Mountain, who instituted the revolutionary tribunals aimed not against the counter-revolution, but against all who oppose any agrarian law or any other law subversives of territorial, commercial, or industrial prosperity. Robespierre was no communist, but he was prepared to go further than the Girondins and the masses, who by now knew what they wanted, and turned from the Girondins and gave their support to Robespierre and the Mountain, the extreme left. Dumouriez, the Girondin general commanding in the field, deserted to the counter-revolution, and the Paris masses, deserting the Paris Commune, hitherto the real revolutionary center of Paris, organized an independent center of their own, and the famous Avice, and on May 31st and June 2nd, the firmness but great moderation made the Girondin leaders retire from the convention, placing them all under house arrest, and offering hostages out of their own ranks as guarantees of their safety. When history is written as it ought to be written, it is the moderation and long patience of the masses at which men will wonder, not their ferocity. and the Girondins escaped and, going to the provinces, joined the counter-revolution. In those difficult days, Robespierre in the mountain gave France a strong government, and the convention abolished the feudal laws at last, put an end to the most crying abuses, and won the confidence of the people. And despite the political intrigues of the leaders, the government, while hostile to communism, took the people into its confidence, for it had nobody else to depend upon. A rare exaltation of sacrifice and devotion moved through revolutionary France and Paris. And as a Russia under Lenin and Trotsky, the people who told honestly of victory and or of defeat, error, were openly acknowledged and were to this day reaction, and where to this day reaction can only see a few thousand people who fell under the guillotine in Paris between 1793 and July 1794 was one of the supreme epochs of political history. Never until 1917 were the masses ever to have so much powerful influence, for it was no more than influence upon any government. And in these months of their nearest approach to power, they did not forget the blacks. They felt towards them as brothers, and the old slave owners, whom they knew to be supporters of the counter-revolution, they hated as if Frenchmen themselves had suffered under the whip. It was not Paris alone, but all revolutionary France, servants, peasants, workers, the laborers by the day and in the fields, and all over France were filled with a virulent hatred against the aristocracy of the skin. There were many so moved by the sufferings of the slaves that they had long ceased to drink coffee, thinking of it as drenched with the blood and sweat of men turned into brutes. It was boycotting coffee, huh? Noble and generous working people of France and those millions of honest English nonconformists who listened to their clergymen and gave strength to the English movement for the abolition of slavery. These are the people whom the sons of Africa and the lovers of humanity will remember with gratitude and affection, not the perorating liberals in France, nor the philanthropy plus 5% hypocrites in the British Houses of Parliament. This was the France to which, in January 1794, 3 deputies sent by San Domingo to the convention arrived: Ballet, a Negro slave who had purchased his freedom; Mills, a mulatto; and Dufay, a white man. On February 3rd, they attended the first session. What happened there was quite unpremeditated. 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 U-N-P-R-M-E, right now. U-N-P-R-E-M-E-D-I-T-A-T-E-D. Unpremeditated. 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 I know what that is. Unpremeditated. I know what it means. Unpremeditated. There we go.
Here's the definition of unpremeditated: of an act, remark, or state not thought out or planned beforehand.
What happened there was quite not thought out, was quite not planned beforehand, was quite unpremeditated. Yeah, I pronounced it. That was a problem. That was the problem. The chairman of the Committee on Decrees addressed the convention. Citizens, your Committee on Decrees has verified the credentials of the deputies from San Domingo. It finds them in order, and I move that they be admitted to their places in the convention. Campbellus rose. Since 1789, the aristocracy of birth and the aristocracy of religion have been destroyed, but the aristocracy of the skin still remains, and that too is now at its last gasps. And equality has been consecrated. A black man, a yellow man are about to join this convention in the name of the free citizens of San Domingo. And the three deputies of San Domingo entered the hall. The black face of Belay and the yellow face of Mills excited long and repeated bursts of applause. And Lacroix of Erie and Lurie and Lo, Louis Lurie and Lurie et Lor, Lurie et Lor. There we go. Lurie et Lor, not Lurie. Lacroix of oh shit, how I pronounce this? Lacroix of you're at Lor. There we go. You're at Lor followed. And the assembly has been anxious to have within it some of those men of color who have suffered oppression for so many years. And today it has two of them. I demand that their introductions be marked by the president's fraternal embrace. The motion was carried amidst applause, and the three deputies of San Domingo advised to advance to the president and receive the fraternal kiss, while the hall rang with fresh applause. The next day, Belay, the Negro, delivered the long and fiery oration, pledged the blacks to the cause of the revolution, and asked the convention to declare slavery abolished. It was fitting that the Negro and the ex-slave should make the speech which introduced one of the most important legislative acts ever passed by any political assembly. No one spoke after Belay. Instead, Levasseur or Sarthe moved the motion. When drawing up the Constitution of the French people, we paid no attention to the unhappy Negroes, and posterity will bear us a great reproach for that. Let us repair the wrong. Let us proclaim the liberty of the Negroes, Mr. President. Do not suffer the convention to dishonor itself by a discussion. The assembly rose in acclamation, and the two deputies of color appeared on the tribune and embraced while the applause rolled around the hall from members and visitors. Now Lacroix led the mulatto and the Negro to the president, who gave them the presidential kiss when the applause started again. And Camden drew the attention of the House to an incident which had taken place among the spectators. The citizeness of color who regularly attends the sittings of the convention has just felt is so keen a joy at seeing us give liberty to all his brethren that she has fainted. Applause. I demand that this fact be mentioned in the minutes, and that this citizeness be admitted to the sitting and receive at least this much recognition of her civic virtues. The motion was carried, and the woman walked to the front bench of the amphitheater and sat to the left of the president, drying her tears amidst another burst of cheering. Now Lacroix, who had spoken the day before, then proposed the draft of the decree. I demand that the Minister of Marine be instructed to dispatch at once advices to the colonies to give them the happy news of their freedom. And I propose the following decree. The National Convention declares slavery abolished in all the colonies. And in consequence, it declares that all men, without distinction of color, domiciled in the colonies, are French citizens and enjoy all the rights assured under the Constitution. Gone was all the talking and fumbling, the sabotage of the Barnaves, and the convenient memories of the Brissets. And in 1789, Gregory had proposed equality for mulattoes and gradual abolition, and he had been treated as anyone would be treated for the Union of South Africa today proposed merely social and political equality for educated Africans and relief from the slavery of the past laws for the rest. Like Gregory, he would be denounced as a Bolshevik and would be lucky to escape lynching. Yet, when the masses turn, as turn they will one day, and try to end the tyranny of centuries, not only the tyrants, but all civilization holds up its hand in horror and clamors for order to be restored. If the revolution carries high overhead expenses, most of them it inherits from the greed of recreationaries and cowardice of the so-called moderates. And long before abolition, the mischief had been done in the French colonies, and it was not abolition, but the refusal to abolish which had done it. At the time, slavery had been overturned only in San Domingo and all the French colonies, and the generous spontaneity of the convention was only a reflection of the overflowing desire which filled all France to end tyranny and oppression everywhere. But the generosity of the revolutionary spirit was at the same time the soundest political policy, and Robespierre was not present at the session and did not approve of the step. Now Danton knew that the convention had not swept off its feet by the excess of feeling, and thought that it ought to have been more cautious, but that master of revolutionary tactics could not fail to see that the decree, by ratifying the liberty which the blacks had won, was giving them a concrete interest in the struggle against Britain and Spain's reaction. The English are done for, he shouted. The English are done for, he shouted, and Pitt and his plots are riddled. But while the revolution swelled with justifiable pride, the rich fumed, remaining shameless and obstinate. And as soon as the decree was passed and maritime bourgeois sent to the deputies of the convention an address on the occasion of the enfranchisement of the Negroes. Bravo! 100 times bravo, our masters. This is the cry with which all our places of business resound when the public press comes each day and brings us details of your great operations. Certainly, we have all the time to read them at leisure, since we have no longer any work to do, and there is no longer any shipbuilding in our ports, still less any construction of boats. And the manufactories are deserted, and the shops even are closed. And thus, thanks to your sublime decrees, every day is a holiday for the workers, and we can count more than 300,000 of our different towns who have no other occupation than arms folded to talk about the news of the day, of the rights of man, and of the Constitution. It is true that every day they become more hungry, but whoever thinks of the stomach when the heart is glad? The convention bourgeois itself was not happy after the first excitement was over, but the masses of the radicals hailed the decree as another great clearance in the forest of abuses. It is not known exactly when the news reached the West Indies, but on June 5th, the day after the celebrations of the king's birthday and the capture of Port-au-Prince, the English commanders of St. Kitts heard that 7 French ships had escaped the British fleet and landed in Guadeloupe. And in command was Victor Hughes, a mulatto, one of the great personalities of the French Revolution, to whom nothing was impossible. And taken from his post as public prosecutor in Rochefort, and sent to the West Indies. Hughes brought only 1,500 men, but he brought also the convention's message to the blacks. There was no black army in the Windward Islands as in San Domingo, and he had to make one out of raw slaves. But he gave them the revolutionary message and dressed them in the colors of the Republic. And the Black Army fell on the victorious British, began to drive them out of the French colonies, and then carried the war into the British islands. Toussaint got the news of the decree sometime in May, and the fate of the French in San Domingo was hanging by a thread. But now that the decree of Santanax was ratified in France, he did not hesitate a moment, but at once told Laveau that he was willing to join him. And Laveau, overjoyed, accepted the offer and agreed to make him a brigadier general. And Toussaint responded with a vigor and audacity that left all San Domingo gasping. He sent to the destitute Laveau some good ammunition from the Spanish stores, and then he persuaded those of his followers who were with him to change over, and all agreed. French soldiers, ex-slaves of the ranks and file of all his officers, blacks and white royalists who had deserted the Republic to join him. His demeanor at Mass was so devout that de Hermano, watching him communicate one day, commented that God, if he come to earth, could not visit a purer spirit than Toussaint Louverture. And one morning in June, Toussaint, having communicated with his usual devotion, fell on the startled Biassou and routed his troops. My bad. Yeah, this will be the last page. We're almost to the end. And routed his troops. Then, in a campaign as brilliant as the one by which he had captured the line of camps for the Spaniards, he recaptured them for the French, either conquering them or winning over commanders and men. And so that when he joined the French, he had 4,000 troops. The North Province was almost recaptured, and the Spaniards, Biassou and Jean-Francois, were not only routed but demoralized. And the British, having received some overdue reinforcements, were already calculating how much of the conquered San Domingo they could wangle from their allies, the Spaniards. And in these matters the more we have, the better our pretensions, wrote Dunbus to Williamson. On them, just about to swallow the prize, Toussaint turned with one of his tigerish leaps, and he captured all their possessions on the right bank of the Artibonite and drove them across the river. But for the succession of unexpected misfortunes would have taken their stronghold of St. Mark. And that was chapter 5. Man, we pushed through that. I pushed through that thing. Man, I am so glad that I'm reading the whole chapter. Hey, that was chapter 5. That was chapter 5 of the Black Jacobins, the Toussaint Louverture, and the San Domingo Revolution by C.L.R. James. Man, the sea of pages that has been laid for us to be able to maneuver and see what treasures we can unearth, what treasures we can pull up from the depths of the sea of pages. Just like Jacques Cousteau. What truths, what lies can we expose, and what truths can we, put there to be told for all to know? It was some fighting going on, that's for sure. Fighting going on, and Toussaint was doing wonderfully. Toussaint was making a name for himself. Toussaint was shining, man. He was shining above all. And even the Spaniards had to give him his just due. It was just something about the man. They couldn't even really, they couldn't put words to it. It was something about that man. Something about Toussaint. Hey, but that's that, man. That's that. Chapter 5. Hey, next chapter is chapter 6. We'll come back the next time. Chapter 6, the rise of Toussaint. And I think that's going to be a good one. I think that's going to go more in depth. in depth into the things that Toussaint and the battles that Toussaint had, which is I want to hear that. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear those things. Chapter 6, the rise of Toussaint. We're moving right along, man. We're almost halfway through the book. We're almost halfway through the book. We got to get to 200 though, because we're gonna read. The book has 418 pages, so we need to get to 209. Once we get to 209, we'll be halfway through the book. Let me see, what's 209? 209 would be chapter 209 would be chapter 9. Once we get to chapter 9, page 209, then we'll be halfway through the book. 209. Yeah, I appreciate everybody who stayed with me through the whole chapter, man. I appreciate that. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank all of y'all who stopped by, left a comment, whether it was some humbug or some good stuff. I appreciate it all. Like this comment, no monitor with this humbug. Hey, I appreciate everybody who commented. I appreciate everybody who watched. I appreciate everybody who gave me a like, a listening ear. Hopefully it was something. Hopefully it was a treasure that you may have found. Hopefully it's something that you can, pull, extrapolate from the reading and grow from. Use, apply to your life, maybe. Hopefully it's something that you can use to help burn down the plantations in your mind. Abolish the slavery that's been holding you up. Abolish that. Maybe you can, where's the Toussaint in your mind? Let's get it. Let's get it. One day at a time. One day at a time. Build the habits. Destroy the bullshit in your mind and build it back up with good habits. Good habits. Good habits that's good for you. And let's keep moving forward, because we have all we need to succeed. Toussaint had all he needed to succeed, and he did. Haiti had all they needed to succeed, and they did. They did. They succeeded. They succeeded. They succeeded in small, and then came back and succeeded in big. It took time. It took time. But like with any revolution, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. You have to take accountability of account of the, like they had to take account of all the different properties, all the different places that they burnt down, the different provinces, the north, south, east, west of the island. You had to come back and fortify it. Come back and they won, they lost, they won, they lost, but it didn't deter them from the objective, which was the abolition of slavery, which they got. They got that. They got that. They were successful in that. And we can be successful as well. We can be successful as well. You have all you need to succeed. Let's succeed. So we worked our body, we worked our mind for sure with Mr. Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution by C.L.R. James, the Black Jacobin. And now we got to work our body one more time. So I gave you 50, but I only asked you 25. So if you get like me, this is the habit we're trying to build. Better us's, man. And if you have done the work in your body part, you should have done 25 things. 50. You will have done 50 things by the time we finish a session or episode. I'm trying to do 100 things. So I would have done 100 things by the time we finish. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit the push-ups one more time, so that way I can have my 100 push-ups down, since I ain't did no push-ups today. So at least I'll have this 100. At least I'll have this 100 in. So I'm gonna give you 50. I'm gonna drop and give you 50. Drop and give you 50. Oh, bag. Give me 50 feet. That's better. But I'm gonna go ahead and give you 50. But I asked for you 25. Give me 25 things. Whatever it is. Don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat yourself. 25 things. And let's go, man. Let's go. Let's keep building ourselves up. Mind, body, and soul. Let's keep building ourselves up. No delay. Don't hesitate. We got things to do day to day, man. If you got life in you, you got breath to breathe. Let's get up and make some moves, man. Let's succeed. Let's succeed, succeed, succeed. I'm gonna give you 20. I'm gonna give me 25. I'm gonna give you 50. I'm gonna give you 50 straight out. Well, maybe not straight out, but I'm gonna give you 50 though. I'm gonna give you 50 like I did the first time. Let's get it. 50 off my log of strength. Rub that thing down like the Apollo. It's showtime. 50. Let's go. 25 at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. He said Toussaint was exercising all the time. He had a rigorous exercise. If Toussaint can do it, you can do it. We can do it. I can do it. Let's get it. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Let's count down. Count down from 25. 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14. Ooh, I feel it. Can you feel it? 13, 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Push. 3, 2, 1. That's my 50. I gave you 50. I want to say I ain't give you. I gave you 50. 50 things. All I asked you to do is 25 things. But I gave you 50 of them. Whew, man, that was tonight's reading. I stumbled over some words here and there, which I don't like to do, but that's all part of the growth. That's all part of your growth. You got to persevere. Persevere through the hiccups. Persevere through the speed bumps. And you'll have them. You'll have them, especially if you're not a person who reads a lot. And I'm definitely trying to build up my reading. So I'm going to have bumps in the road, just like you. But you got to push through. You got to push through, and I push through. And we finished chapter 5 today in episode 10. Episode 10 of Reading with Shalom. Woo-wee. I got my 100 in today. Hey, that's what it is, man. If you want to check it out on yourself, for yourself, Mr. C.L.R. James. And I love the cover. Man, it feels so good in your hand, or in my hands. I love the cover. I love the cover. I wish it was a hardback. I wish it was a hardback book instead of a softback book, but regardless, it's still a wonderful cover. It feels kind of waxy, so it has a little texture to it, especially where the colors are. It has a little texture. I really like that. I really like that. I don't know if it makes the book more resistant to things. I don't know. But I hope that it does. I hope it helps it last longer. Definitely like the colors. They did a good job. Mr. C.L.R. James did a great job on or maybe it's vintagebook.com. I don't know. But whoever it is, they did a great job on the making of this cover or whatever they used for it. I like it. I like it. But we'll keep pushing on and keep reading about the Black Jacobins and see what Mr. Toussaint Louverture has done in chapter 6 at the next time. So until then, man, I'm Shalom, man. I'm out here reading shit, doing shit, learning shit, growing, baby. Trying to be better than I was yesterday. who knows what type of man I'll be in the end. When the story is written about me, the same way Toussaint, you know, the story is written about him right now. Maybe one day I'll be reading about the things I've done, the places I've been, whatever shit I may have taken part of that I don't even know I might take part of. But I'm going to keep doing my part in the revolution. Hey, they say you want to hide something from a nigga, put it in the book. I'm trying to find where they hiding. Hey, you could hide it. You could hide it, my boy. Hide it if you want. I'm coming to look it up. They say the world gonna end it because copper people reading. Well, I'm gonna help end it. Shalom. I'm gonna continue being a pirate out here on the sea of pages, man. Doing my thing. Till next time, man. Catch it on the back end. Tell your people about it. Like, definitely leave me a comment what you think about the reading, what you think about what you heard, if you paid attention to it. You know, like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your people. Man, let's keep moving. Let's keep growing, man. Till next time, shalom, everybody. I hope y'all have a wonderful evening, a wonderful night, a wonderful day, whenever y'all read this, whenever y'all get this. Shalom. I'm out, baby.